This is Big Man Tyrone, and you're about to watch the MtG Cabal Cast with your hosts, Woad, Thirsty, and Reptar. Sub to us on all your podcast networks at MtG Cabal Cast and YouTube.
Hey guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal Cast. We've got some pretty good stuff to cover this week. The big thing here, obviously, sorry about the delay, we had the Mythic Championship, Pro Tour, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk a little bit about that if we can get to it. We're also going to talk about our impressions of the pre-release, which is what the vast majority of people were probably doing this weekend. In addition, there's some information that's been given to some stores about what premium is and what it means besides having a little kiosk that displays Arena. So let's get started with our pre-release impressions.
So I actually got the chance to spend all day at one of the largest LGS in my state vending on behalf of Troll and Toad, because last week Jeremy Muir, as we talked about, is from the great state of Vermont, so he basically gets a table every quarter, and that's his kind of mini vacation to come see his family, etc. He was unable to this time, so I filled in. And I basically got to watch at the pre-release Brokenness Evolve. I watched somebody play Mono Black 5-color Planeswalkers. And I think he went 3-1, losing round 1 to a lack of ramp / bad mana, but it worked out the rest of the day. He said after, it might have just been a lack of shuffling, etc. And talked to a lot of people about how disgusting this limited format feels, where on average you're going to be playing 3 Planeswalkers, most of them uncommon unless you happen to open a bomb, and that will kind of be the standard we expect in draft. And then sealed, you can go anywhere from 0 to 2 to 3 to 5, but the grosser your deck is, you're either going to move towards that 5-color and 5+ Planeswalker side of things, or 0. That's the other thing we found out, was if your deck is just absolutely busted, you might actually wind up having 0 Planeswalkers because your spells are just good enough. You open a bunch of the gods or enough of the value rares in terms of playability. A+. In terms of vending, things are a little difficult to kind of suss out up here. Usually I wind up buying a lot of standard cards because standard's still live for another 3 months. We don't have a rotation. I didn't pick up a lot of that kind of cruft. What I did pick up a lot of was EDH cards. I had a number of singleton partial decks come my way. I bought the majority of a Nicol Bolas Flipwalker deck from somebody, including his Sensei's Divining Top and a number of the other higher end spells. Karn and Ugin. I thought the kid was on Tron until I was talking to him. Yeah. His EDH stuff. And then, I don't know who, but somebody bought several either Mythic Edition 2s or a number of the Planeswalkers from them, because I wound up buying 2 Dax, 2 Karns, and a Johnny, and something else. So for me, it's just kind of the Wild Wild West, as expected up here prior to rotation. I get a ton of EDH stuff because that's my player base right now, but come the September rotation, that's when people will just flood me with the rotating staples and people who just want to kind of dump into Arena every now and again. They just save up all year, and they know that when Jeremy's in town, they can actually sell him his bulk, because he'll drive in and can drive it back. So they'll just, liquidate everything in September.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
mine, so I've entered a smaller shop up here where it was Two-Headed Giant was the order of the weekend.
Ooh.
Man, Two-Headed Giant in this format is miserable.
Really?
It is so bad. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of premium removal. I was on red, white, splash green for the Living Twister guy, because I had 2 of him.
Oh, yeah. The Elemental.
I had 2 to 4 of every 2-mana burn spell in the format in my pool. And we still wound up with a constant ground clog in every game. We went 0-0-3 drop.
Jeez.
It was crazy. The one thing I will say that a lot of people were doing, which is typically not the case, a lot of times at pre-releases, and maybe it's not the case up there, everyone holds on to their chase cards because they're like, oh, it's worth this much money now. I want to hold on to this.
Yeah.
It's not going to be worth that much in a week once it's opened into the ground.
Yeah, I experiencing something similar but a little different. At the end of the events, my store runs 3 events on Saturday. They have 2 competitive events, one at 9 and one at 3, and then a casual event in the middle. So what'll happen is I'll get people who want to sell some of their pool from the first event to jump into the second because they come out. I can count on these people because they only play pre-releases. So they don't care about those cards. They just want to roll into the next event.
Yeah. And people were actually dumping those spiked cards. The one thing this wasn't the case for was obviously foils, because EDH.
Yeah.
So, whole different beast, that's fine. But there were a lot of people that were dumping Karns, they were dumping Nicol Boluses. The only one people weren't dumping was Gideon. Now, I don't know if that means he's necessarily well-positioned for new standard. I think James Chilcott tweeted out, and we had a back and forth about what people think will be the most valuable mythic in a year out of this set.
Oh, that's a tough question.
Think immediately, Gideon slides in really well into the metagame.
Yep.
So my impression is that based on what I saw, because everyone wanted Gideon, no one was getting rid of Gideon.
Got it. Okay.
I think that's going to be out of the gate like the chase mythic from the set. Besides Yoshitaka Amano Liliana, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, I have a number of locals who are looking for Gideon to play in mono white or white splash blue for Dovin and Deputy of Detention.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. I haven't really had any people ask for anything else. No gods, no Karn, no Ugin, nothing.
Yeah.
So
I do think though that Oketra is like flying under the radar a lot right now. That's another one that I'd probably keep an eye on. It's very low cost, and it gets you there real quick. 3/3 double strike. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance, and it has the God Eternal clause for 5 mana for a 3/6. That's real good.
Yeah.
And I think right now it's at like $7 for the non-foil, which obviously pre-release prices are all inflated, whatever.
Yeah.
I could see that dropping down. The other buzz I got from this weekend, and I was very much in agreement, and we've talked about it in the Discord, is Tomic. Tomic foils long-term seemed real good because he has so much potential in Eternal formats.
Absolutely. I heard about Oketra kind of crushing a couple games. Ilharg won, Ronus won.
Yeah.
Whether or not a lot of this translates into constructed formats is kind of up in the air right now. I'd like to believe that at least Bolas, Gideon, and Ilharg will make it out because those seem like the immediate ones. There is a deck floating around right now for, I think it's mainly meant for best of one on Moto, that uses Krenko and Ronos to just finish out the game real quick. Make a bunch of goblins, give them all whatever it is that Ronos does, and just smush. Let me see
Get there. Yeah.
And that's that. But I don't know where anybody else is really going to come into play in the standard format. It's still pretty early, and I haven't looked at any Moto results.
Yeah.
But
I will say, and this is generally the consensus from everyone I've talked to, Blast Zone is not all it's cracked up to be. Maybe in standard, but certainly not in the Eternal formats. Like a lot of people when it first got split were like, oh, this goes in Rock, this Juns.
Yep.
No, it does not.
No, it doesn't.
It's not good.
No. It's not engineered explosives.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I also have been amazed by how cheap Karn is. Not a lot of buzz on that one either way. Obviously, Vintage loves that card.
Oh, absolutely.
But, it's $7-8. I haven't heard a lot of hype around it, but that seems cheap long term.
Yeah, I
could be wrong.
I think it is, and the longer Vintage and Legacy exist, the more we'll see cards like that come into play. Blue Red Delver was playing Null Rod for a while. Like it's gonna happen. If the Mud deck in Legacy isn't as good, obviously, as Mud in Vintage, because you only have 8 lands that produce 2 or more mana to pump out your artifacts. But if for whatever reason WotC just makes an artifact that slots into that deck and makes it decent, we're gonna see an uptick in Karn.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from pre-release, getting into premium for LGSs, and I'll probably be the main one talking here. So I kind of had the suspicion that premium seemed like a way for WotC to sort of prop up stores that they thought were better than others, be it capacity, anything like that. Now, when they first announced it, they said, they'll have MCQs. Well, one of the rules for the MCQs was you had to be able to host at least 120 people. Some of the stores that got premium can't host that much. Mox Boarding House cannot host 120 people very easily. But they got premium. So the premium program seems more to be stores that they think exemplify the positives of the brand.
Got it.
Now, there's been some information coming from WotC reps that premium stores will get different stuff than normal stores. So in addition to normal allocation that stores get, premium stores may get a little bit extra. They didn't have specifics on it.
Okay.
But I would not be surprised if eventually there's premium-only sleeves, premium-only supplemental product. Stuff like that really emphasizes their desire to have these stores be the stores that people think of. And the other thing is, and we talked about this a little bit on the Discord as well, is it seems like Wizards and Hasbro has acknowledged we're in a mature market now. So you don't have to push up these lesser LGSs. You can push for the cream of the crop to just rise above the rest even further. And, there's still been some shops out there that primarily subsisted on single sales, and they have to go the way of the dinosaur now. Because if Wizards continues to support these premium stores a little bit more, there's less in the sea there for the non-premium LGSs.
Yeah, you get rid of the problem of PTQs, consecutive weekends in a row, several hours away, all over a state, by just centralizing them across a smaller number of stores.
Yep. And, they've got it to, they've got the online for one thing, obviously, but they also have your stores. And I think the highest concentration in a state, and I'd have to pull the email up for sure, was, I think, 4 in a state. And what they did with everything was they set it out and said, these are the weekends you want to avoid. If these events are within a certain distance of you, and the events they listed out are GP's Star City Games events, actually.
Yeah.
SCG Con, and then the Modern Horizons pre-release. And they said, do what you want, but we highly recommend you not do these on those days.
That's interesting.
It looks like, and it looks like I think 6 is the highest concentration. And it's, of course, in California.
Yeah.
Where else would it be?
The state's gigantic.
And it seems like they're taking a more active role with these stores than they are with other stores. And I think it doesn't take much to figure out that that's only going to be to those stores' benefit.
Yeah.
That the company that runs this product, that creates it, is taking an active interest in their success. So I'm not saying you're necessarily going to see, them deliberately start pulling allocation from smaller stores, but I think you'll see things shift.
Yeah.
So that we got rid of, Advance Plus, all that, and you've got premium.
Yeah.
Your flagship, your bright lights. They have kiosks. You can play Arena.
Yep.
And one of the interesting things is that, and over the course of us getting premium, they wanted a walkthrough of the entire space. Front of house, back of house, bathrooms.
Yeah, we mentioned this, actually. Yeah, we talked about this briefly.
And one of the things they said was, you need to redo your floors because they look dirty. And that was one of the things that really triggered to me, like, okay, well, obviously they're taking a very active interest in how their brand is being portrayed.
Yeah, previously you needed bathrooms.
Yeah.
And space to play. And you could nest stores in stores to get more distro product. That was a trick for distro, not for WotC. But because of this walkthrough now, it makes that a little harder. But it also pumps up the brand, like you're talking about. These are the stores that they can point to and say, you want to be like this guy. Yeah. This guy is going to get all the benefits.
Yeah. And, especially now, it's interesting the number of premium stores that actually have alcohol. Because for years, that was something they didn't want.
Yeah, the 21
Mox Boarding House and stuff like this, where it's like, okay, we're okay with this. We appreciate that it's an amenity that some of our players really enjoy, and we're acknowledging that. And it's coming from, I always joke that football is my religion. They seem to be more and more and more gravitating towards acknowledging, you know what? This is a legitimate sport.
Yeah.
We're trying to treat it that way. We're trying to do these things the right way. And they've been making strides, in my opinion. I think they've been doing all right.
No, I like that. I can think back to my heavy playing days and a number of stores that were Advanced Plus getting PTQs when those things were 7-8 round events that did not deserve PTQs because they didn't have the space and they would not rent the space.
Yeah.
So you just got crammed into a space where you had less than a playmat's worth of room to play for the first 2 or 3 rounds while everything was sorted out and people left because they just couldn't deal with the store.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also solves the problem of driving all over creation to get to those events because they can no longer be held all over creation, save for large states where you're going to have to drive anyway.
Yeah.
But I like the change.
Yeah, I think it, I'm very outspoken. I think Wizards messes a lot of things up. I actually think this is for the better of not just the game, but the community at large.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And I'd hate to see things like from the Vault style products get removed from all stores and given only to premium, but it's a premium product, quote unquote, and it makes sense that the premium stores get the premium products. It's not essential to playing the game. You don't have a pre-release off of these things. You don't even have any kind of launch events for them. People just walk in and buy them, and you want your specialty stores to have it. It actually sounds like what was it? Cards Against Humanity. You could only have one store in every state be I forgot the term for it that they used, a vendor of Cards Against Humanity. Everybody else had to order it through a service like Amazon. They cannot order it direct through the company. Yeah. And you had stores basically vying for that position or buying it from each other like a liquor license.
Yeah.
But that was
they wanted it, and that's what it was.
Yeah, and it was very important to the game and the growth of that game, and it basically allowed them to expand on it 3 or 4 times because people knew where to go to get the game. They knew what stores to go to. It was given to what that company deemed were the best stores for it, that had the most amount of traffic, that would see the best sales and do the best for them. And it's a decent model, especially coming from a company who's been very stick in the mud about things, lived in the past a lot when it comes to both marketing and growth. And I think it just forwards the game as a whole. Yeah, it's definitely a good move. Financially, I don't think we really see much fall out of this, much like the pre-release stuff. It's just very interesting to know that you might have to travel to get some of your products now.
Yeah,
you might not just be able to shop around and hit every game store in your area. You're going to have to go to one place and compete against everybody else for it. Yeah.
Yep.
But I guess we'll see as things go, where we wind up. And I guess we got a little bit of time left that we can cover the London Mulligan and what we might see shake out of this.
Yeah, by all means, take it away.
Oh, sure. So we've had some guys that have been playing Moto for probably the last 2 weeks. I think that the London Mulligan's been live, last week and a half. And what they noticed was that basically there was no like huge shakeup for a format like Modern in regards to the London Mulligan immediately. Like, yes, you should wind up playing certain things in your sideboard right now while the format's in flux before Modern Horizons. Sorry, in your main deck, not your sideboard, like Surgical Extraction. But what it actually changed was Legacy. And what they saw playing Legacy was that decks like Storm fell off because the fair decks were actually able to mulligan more reliably to their answers in games 1, 2, and 3. Like I say game 1 because eventually you're going to know when you sit down against some people what they're on, or later on in the event, etc. And you can actually see that trend. You'll see, if you go back and you look at Legacy events, you'll see Blue-White Stoneblade, you'll see Miracles, you'll see Grixis Control and 4-color Control just kind of pick up in popularity over the last couple of weeks. This doesn't account for the spike over Force of Will. That's kind of tied to the Modern Horizons announcement. There's people hoping on it. But if the London Mulligan sticks around, that spike might become the new floor based solely on that mulligan, because you can get there a lot easier and give yourself that fighting chance early on. In Vintage, this also makes a difference, but I challenge you to tweet at us with the name of a fair deck in Vintage. It doesn't exist.
It's great because everything is it's fair because everyone is doing busted things. Okay,
that's it. Like, if you want to call, like, I think Shops is a fair deck because it's level 0. If you can't beat Shops with your deck, then you probably shouldn't be playing your deck. But, like, That's whatever. But Shops now gets to mulligan to the pieces it needs in those games, and all it needs is like a land, a 0 CMC artifact, or Soul Ring, and then whatever lock piece they need for the first couple of turns.
Yeah.
Like, you got that. Dredge has already been mulliganing to Bazaar. It might not need Serum Powder anymore. Every Storm deck is a little more reliable now because you're still a critical mass deck, but when you have the 5 best cards in your opening hand for your 5, things are a lot better.
Yeah.
The problem with Modern is that it doesn't have a 0 or 1 CMC catch-all like other formats do. There's no... Daze isn't a catch-all, but between turns 1 and 2 it usually is, and it doesn't have Force of Will, and I'll eat this hat if we do wind up with Force of Will in Modern. Not going to be a thing.
It's not.
But
it can't happen.
Mulliganing... No. Taking blue-eye control and trying to mulligan to the appropriate set of cards you need to both play the game that you're trying to enact and control your opponent at the same time is a difficult ask, and I'm going to try and pull this up. And we have the win rates from the Mythic Championship.
Yes.
And we can see blue-eye control, the fourth most played deck when this went out, has a 50.4 win rate across the field. Well, Dredge does better. Is it Phoenix does better? Humans does better. A number of decks do better than this because they have better mulligans than blue-white control. If you were looking at Legacy results, you would actually see something akin to, not quite where Ad Nauseam is with a 61.7% win rate for the control deck, but you would see it a lot higher. You'd see it somewhere probably in the mid-50s, maybe closer to 60.
Yeah. It's interesting that the win rates are what they are because as you and I talked a little bit about beforehand, this event is just bad data science.
Yeah.
I mean, you're testing 2 things at once, and I don't understand how Hasbro or WotC, a company with all this money and this brilliant marketing department that I'm sure did a ton of research, just doesn't get that, like, okay, you can't test 2 variables at once because you don't know which variable you're collecting data from.
Yeah, and we're looking at, in this instance, the London Mulligan. And the other data point?
Deck lists.
There it
Which, after the second round, once you get deck lists, you know what that does a lot of?
5th round. Or second round of Modern, 5th round overall.
Round. Yeah. That changes your mulligan strategy because you get to see that beforehand. Obviously, it's going to make a difference.
Yep.
How could it not?
The only person to visibly suffer was Reed Duke in round 4.
Yeah.
And they mention it, that his round on cam, the first round, they did not get deck lists. Yeah. And he doesn't lose in glorious fashion, but he plays Jund, which I don't want to say has a negative win rate here, but... Alright, 5 people played it. I guess 5... We have 5 Jaffers, and they were 54.8% on the weekend.
Yeah.
No, but the other thing, to go along with that, so they have multiple data points to test. They have data coming in from Moto across all formats, which is great. At least it's siloed there. What they did at the Pro Tour as well is on the top of each match slip for each player, there were questions about how many times you mulliganed in the match and what deck you played. This way they can kind of try correlate it on site. I guess they just gave match slips to Frank Karsten all weekend, and he's going to just pump out some spreadsheet for something for him. But this is a mulligan rule I expect them to enact. The only format it does not impact positively is Modern, and that's because we have Horizons coming up, and that's the next big data point for this. If Modern is in flux for a whole month, so be it. It's not a GP format, I don't think, in the next 3 weeks.
No.
And we have some Star City stuff, but we won't know about the mulligan rule until either the end of this week or beginning of next week, maybe. Or if there's a ban or restricted announcement because they keep changing the time on that, maybe we'll find out then. Yeah. But
looks like we don't have a Modern event until Dallas at the end of June.
Bam.
So,
which is like a whole.
Yeah, and that's actually worth noting. The last event we know the format for the entire year.
I was thinking about that earlier. I was thinking about bringing it up and talking about some of the event structures, but we're just kind of clueless after that. They kept us in the dark long enough to hide Modern Horizons from us. Then they spoiled Modern Horizons, fill out the rest of that quarter, and then the next 2 quarters just remain blank. Star City does have some Modern events, but their stuff's kind of... not their format, they're metas.
Metagame.
Yeah, exactly. But this mulligan is definitely enacted, is going to prop up Force of Will for the foreseeable future. It might take a tumble if it's not in Modern Horizons. And after that, we should just see it go back up. And if you I'm not going to bring it up because it's ridiculous, but take a look at the graph of Alliance's Force of Will on stocks. It's ridiculous what that card did.
Yeah, it's real dumb.
Announced day, just up.
Yeah.
The slope on that thing was insane. It looked like a limit, less like a slope. But we'll cover this a little more in detail in regards to the London Mulligan as we move along. But it is something that definitely deserves your consideration as you're thinking about what cards you want to move into. Do you want to move in on anything in regards to Modern? Like, do you have your surgical extractions yet? Do you want to get out of your surgical extractions? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
It definitely should affect the way you're thinking and the way you're considering cards. But
for sure.
Moving on out to end the episode, our picks. So one thing I do want to say is last week during the interview I didn't bring up a pick because I just kind of sprung it on Jeremy. I just added it to our spreadsheet really quietly, and I went with Battle Bond boxes, which have done nothing but go down since I posted it, so bad on me. But
I think that's fine. Time to buy.
Yeah, we are firm believers in Battle Bond. It was a short print set. They never wound up doing a second run. Basically, supply is supply. I think Mass Drop is finally out of them, and everything in there is basically beginning to rebound. If I did my math properly like 2 weeks ago, I think the singles in that set are finally worth more than the price of a box, and that's basically the inflection point that we were waiting for before the box went up. Like, Vedalken Ori is a $30 card again. Did you keep tabs on it? Probably not.
Yeah. It just happened.
But it was a $30 card.
Yeah.
So, and the lands just keep going up in non-foil.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the ceiling is. All I know is that the floor is just constantly moving. So, that's the pick from last week. This week, my pick is Baleful Strix. And I will bring it up for those of you who don't play Legacy, because I think that's the only format it's currently played in. But Baleful Strix is the little artifact that could. It was originally in Plane Chase 2012.
Yep.
And it wasn't uncommon there because you need rarities, I guess. And is now a rare in Eternal Masters.
Mm-hmm.
This is a card that slots easily into Modern Horizons. In my mind, it doesn't really do much to shake up the format in regards to breaking something. All it does is make a handful of established archetypes better. And one of the ones I want to bring up is one I take umbrage with, and it is Fairies by Yuta Takahashi. I don't know how people let him get away with titling decks without fairies in it. Fairies! But here we are. Here's his deck from Grand Prix Los Angeles, whenever it loads.
Doesn't he have
Oh,
Bitter
cool.
Blossom? That makes fairies. It's a fairy tribal card. I pitch it to Collective Brutality all the time.
Yeah. Snapcaster Mage, he officially cut the Spell Stutter sprite. That was announced at the Mythic Championship.
Yeah.
So these Spell Starter sprites are gone. Lilyvale, Jace the Mind Sculptor. But this is the basis of a blue-black tempo or a blue-black control shell in time. And Baleful Strix slides square into this shell. Right now, if the numbers are holding from when I announced this in our Patreon Discord, let me pull this up. It should be sitting at about, is it $5 for Plane Chase? Nope, they're all $9 now.
Yeah, there's a $6.88 is low for Eternal Masters with shipping included, so it's $7 to $9 is the cheapest it's going to be.
Yep, and you can see conveniently it was a $5 card. Then on March 4th, Modern Horizons announcement hits. It shoots up to $12 and now sits comfortably at about $8. If this is reprinted in Modern Horizons at Rare, we should see this drop down to a $5 card, but this is one of maybe 2 or 3 cards that blue-black tempo or Grixis control is just missing.
Word Bug. There's a ton
Sultai.
of archetypes that suddenly become tier 2, tier 1.
Tarmogoyf would love an artifact creature in your yard. It's not bad. Baleful Strix shuts down combat and makes it a mess for a ton of these decks out there, and eventually you just get to power through with your cheap removal in Fatal Push. If you're playing Grixis, you have that combined with Bolts, Terminate, Kolaghan's Command, Snapcaster Mage. You're looking at a really good shell, and Baleful Strix is just kind of like... it's not an engine piece because this is a control deck, but it gets you there.
It makes things hum along a little bit better.
Yeah. So right now it's, like I said, about $8. If it's in Modern Horizons, we find out it's a rare, it'll tank to $5. If it's an uncommon again, we'll probably see it go maybe $3 or $4.
Yeah.
But
could be lower.
Indeed. And then once people start playing this deck, once they realize that it's actually decent in a format, we should see this card start to take off again. If you want to wait a little bit and see what rarity it's going to be at, you're more than welcome to, but this is, if the moment this card hits in a list, it's going to be $10 plus easy.
Yeah. Mine is piggybacking on impressions of pre-release and, a new set being out. Nahiri Storm of Stone. So it's Boros new uncommon Nahiri, and it's specifically the foils that I'm going to be going after. I've got about 4 so far. I don't want to pay $4 for it, which is low right now when it's going to be opened into the ground on Friday.
Yeah.
But if you can pick this up for sub $2, I think this is an insane 6 to 12 month turnaround. Because as long as it's your turn, creatures you control have first strike, and equip abilities you activate cost 1 colorless less.
Mm-hmm.
In red-white, an EDH combination notorious for combat and equipment. Additionally, it's removal.
Yes.
Storm of Stone deals X damage to target tapped creature. Yes, it gets smaller to protect itself, but giving all of your creatures in EDH first strike, making your jits, your swords, everything else 1 colorless less to equip. It's very hard to find a red-white general that isn't some sort of Voltron or combat general.
No.
There was a Kiri Lineslinger, was even based on artifacts, which equipment is usually an artifact.
Yep.
So
there's Jorkadine, the one from New Phyrexia. 2 red-white. He has 2/2 or 3/3 Metalcraft, pumps your team.
Yeah. And even Metalcraft. Well, Metalcraft's better with equipment. So there's so much opportunity here for this to be a $5 to $10 to $15 random foil.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's kind of undocumented territory as far as planeswalkers go.
Yep.
We've never had planeswalkers with this level of supply. So I could very well be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think getting this for sub $2, get as many as you can. You're not going to lose money on it.
Yeah, we're on our way there too, which is nice. It started at about $5.50. It's currently a little under $4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's trending in the right direction for Friday. Just while they have a kickback sale because it's a new set release and they always do, something just silly.
Yeah. No, I like this card. even in just Boros equipment, you can still proliferate a little bit and keep her around between what was it, Contagion Engine and like what's the clasp?
Contagion Clasp.
Yeah, Contagion Clasp.
And Tumble Magnet.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. You can proliferate a little bit and keep her around longer. I mean, you can even just leave her on 1, and she's extremely good and extremely important to your list. I like the call when you made it, and I'll continue to like it as I mourn the death of my Aurelia EDH deck, because she also likes combat. Surprise.
Yeah. Aurelia was great.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's where I'm going for this week.
One of the things we wanted to point out, the Cabal itself, I don't know how many we're going to be able to pick up, but we are looking at Mythic Edition boxes as a pick for us, as a spec. We're going to try and pull some in and hold them, and I have this in my notes as a duh.
Yeah.
This new Mythic Edition is bonkers, and if you have the ability to pick up, it should be limited to 2. I would highly suggest it, because I can't imagine that Jace doesn't represent half to 3/4 of the price of this box.
Yeah, it's
short term and long term.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting too that this is, if you've ever been iffy about a Mythic Edition, this is probably the last one you're going to be able to make a good amount of money on for a while, because the only walker that they haven't printed in one of these things that might make it worth money is Lily of the Veil.
There it is.
We've got Jace, we've got Eugene, we've got Karn, we've got Teferi. We have everyone.
Yep.
So there's not a whole lot else they can do, and giving us those 2 plus Garrick, come on. Like this, we're going to hit buyer fatigue eventually.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you've ever been on the fence, do yourself a favor. Now is the time to pick it up. Get it. You won't regret it. You'll double your money easy.
Yeah. Even if you crack it and piece things out, you should be able to move everything to somebody who owns a cube pretty easily. Like the only reason I want to get at least 1 copy is literally so I can open it for Jace and put it in my cube.
Yeah.
And Ugin, because I want to replace my foil. But
yeah.
And I want to point out we chose this and not the Japanese boxes. We're very much on the fence about those. It's been a split conversation. A lot of people believe in them in the short term, and we have some people who believe in them in the long term. But we've been on the fence about this thing. It's been a hot topic of conversation for everybody, especially with the announcements regarding allocation, and you can check that out on our Twitter feed. We've been back and forth with, I think both James Chilcott and Billings about this. Yeah. Like, nobody believes that this is just going to be a short order product. Everybody's pretty convinced that this is going to be at least a multiple run product. You don't have to worry about paying Edwin $1,200 for your set. It's just ridiculous.
It's, and actually touching on that, we did receive notice from a purchaser at one of the distros. Late May, early June, there is a second wave hitting American stores. The first allocation was sub 1,000 boxes.
There it is.
Obviously not great.
Jeez.
But it's going to be an at-will product in Japan, obviously.
Yep.
We get the Japanese promos in 1 in 4 of those promo packs that they're sending out to replace your F&M release, and we're getting another wave of boxes.
That's interesting. So the F&Ms.
Huh. Yeah, that was the thing that was really interesting to me, was that they're putting them in the promo packs in 1 in 4 packs. So
it's cute.
We'll have it for a while, it seems like.
Yep. But yeah, if you want to talk to us about that, feel free to on Twitter. You can find us at MtG Cabal Cast, and we'd love to hear whether or not you believe in that product at all.
Yeah.
Or not. I don't. And you can find me at Halt I Am Reptar.
You're at Thirsty Sizzler over here.
We have our Patreon, MtG Cabal Cast. We are still taking entries into the UMA giveaway. Mm-hmm. That box is still collecting dust in a corner. Yep, aging well. Aging well.
It is. Only getting better and better.
Like a fine wine.
Yeah.
But, we'll see you guys next week then.
See you guys.